Hi everyone, so now we're going to talk about the job search in practice. So there's a lot of theory, there's a lot of reading you can do about a job search, but what we're going to do here is talk about the actual steps that you should be taking. Okay? Sometimes it's good to have them in front of you. So just to review, remember, we talked about the job search and the idea of the job search, that first finding postings, is important, but that's just the beginning. You want to make sure that you are looking at a variety of postings in the same field to get to know the language. You're going to want to know the forms, the kind of words that are being used by employers. But that's just the beginning. Once you have done that and you're comfortable looking at job and internship postings in your field, you're going to want to start to deconstruct specific ones that you're interested in. When you deconstruct them, what you're asking yourself is, what does the employer actually want? Who are they looking at? You want to be able to reflect and articulate and translate and evaluate, what they want. And so in doing so, translation is going to be the part where you tailor your resume, cover letter, interview stories, and make sure that you're showing the employer that you are a fit. So the beginning part is, find the job postings. Usually look through many of them to make sure that you're comfortable with the language of the field. Don't look at just one, look at many. And the reason I suggest this is because what you might learn in a classroom could have different language than what an employer is looking for. Employers in one region may call a function of a job something different. The more that you read, the more widely you read, the better you're going to handle the vocabulary and know what the employers are looking for. Okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit about this translation idea, tailoring your resume, cover letter, and what you're going to tell them to match. So our goal is to put the lessons from our previous videos into practice. So we want to talk about what in the job description is vital to you. You want to use those factors to tailor your resume. You want tips and tricks to tailor your resume, and you want to make sure you know what makes a cover letter stand out. So some employers are going to be very clear and explicit with you, and you'll appreciate that. They're going to tell you exactly what they're looking for. They're going to give you even measures and metrics. One that comes to mind is the U.S. military and the U.S. government. But not all employers are going to do that, so you're going to need to use your close reading skills. Remember that you are going to find different types of reviewers for your job application packet. It can be everything from the ATS, the applicant tracking system, or an internal or external recruiter whose job is to find people and put them in front of the committee or a person who's hiring. You may have a hiring manager, one person who is making a decision, or a committee. The more important the job, the higher level the job, the more likely there's a hiring committee. And you may actually even have potential colleagues looking at your resumes. And I've been in all of these scenarios. So here's our advice for the ATS. So the applicant tracking system is going to run automatically. You can think of it as a contest if you like, but really what you want to do is get the ATS to notice you. And you're going to do this by tailoring your resume to the job description every time you apply. It is work. It means that you cannot sit down, click on 100 postings and send out 100 resumes and cover letters in an hour. It means that you're going to have to sit down and you're going to change the language and make sure that you are showing and matching the job description when you apply. You want to use keywords, So remember that word cloud that I showed you in an earlier video looks like art. Well, really what it is if you copy and paste the text of a posting, word clouds will show you what is most important. And you want to then make sure your resume uses those important words over and over again. Make sure that you're using the long form and acronyms of keywords. So, for instance, if you have a Master in Business Administration, an MBA, you're going to use both words. If you were going to talk about that you learned to do search engine optimization, you're going to use those words as well as SEO, because what's going to happen is the ATS will probably pick it up in both and give you double the score. With ATS systems, you don't want to use tables and columns. You don't want to get fancy. You want to be very simple. And the reason there is that the system is screening you. And computers don't understand the way that humans do. Okay? And they're also not impressed with the same things as humans are. Make sure that you're using standard resume sections like work experience. Don't try to be cute or clever like where I've been, what I've done, because again, the software has been taught to look for certain things. Okay? Now, it is possible to cheat or over-optimize for applicant tracking systems, and if you search, you will find how to do this, but I don't recommend it. The goal here is not to win a job or win an interview. The goal here is to find a match. And if you're not honest, if you're not authentic, it's not going to work out well. So this screen, you might want to read this a little bit, pause and take a look. These are things that recruiters hate, okay? Hate about your resumes. Okay? Yours, mine, everybody's. It's kind of like their pet peeves. So you might actually want to just take a look at this, make sure that you're not putting things like this. Make sure your email is appropriate. Make sure that you don't have giant blocks of text. It's not an academic paper. Don't get too creative with your formatting and your fonts. Don't focus on just responsibilities. Make sure you're listing things that are your accomplishments. Be consistent with LinkedIn. Do not use buzzwords and cliches. I mean, yes, you might use some of them, but make sure that they're there for a purpose. Okay? And there's a lot more of this. Okay? So if you do a search on 21 things recruiters hate about your resume, you're going to see them. Okay? Now, you might be sitting here. I know some of you are thinking about grad school, and you're like, I don't have to do this. The reality is you do. Okay? If you're going to apply to grad school, they are going to ask for very similar types of documents. They're going to want a personal statement. They're going to look at your social media. They're going to ask you to write about your research or career aspirations. They're going to want a resume. So although the form can be a little bit different, and I suggest that you speak with Career Services to get an outline for it or examples, you're still going to need these documents. Basically, as a college-educated adult, you're going to have to deal with these. All right, so now I know somebody's thinking, do I really have to write a cover letter? Well, yeah, you do. And cover letters cause me angst. They cause a lot of people angst because it's your hello, it's your introduction. And where the resume is, very factual, talking about what you've accomplished and, what that means, cover letters are a more personal, customized form of writing. So, do you need a cover letter? Well, if you're asked for one, the answer is absolutely. Do not apply to a job if it says, include a cover letter. It says cover letter, resume, references. If they say that, do not apply unless you're going to give the cover letter. On the other hand, depending on the job, if it doesn't say cover letter, you want to do a little digging to see if that's actually true. You might want to look at other job postings from that company. You might want to look at their application system. So there will be employers who do not accept cover letters. They actually go completely off the resume. That's a hint that there's an ATS involved, by the way. In that case, you might not need the cover letter, but I would always err on the side of having one unless you're absolutely sure you don't need one. So there's some questions that any employer is going to ask when they look at your cover letter and your resume. Why do you want to work for us? Why should we choose you? Do we want to work with you? Those are the questions you're trying to answer in a cover letter. Okay? Why do you want to work for us? Why you? Why should you be the one we choose? And do we really want to work with you? And they're going to look at this at multiple levels, not just what you say, but how you say it. And maybe what you don't say too. So you want to think about this strategically. So how do you write a cover letter? So there's a rule of three. Okay? A rule of three is kind of a quick way of writing a cover letter, even if you're not confident. You're going to start with 3 things that you want the employer to know about you as an applicant. So the question, why should they hire me? So what are these 3 things? Okay? Once you've got them in mind, you're going to write 3 parts. Part 1 is your intro. right? That intro is that opening. It's usually one paragraph when you're first starting out. You can think of this as, 3 paragraphs. But as you should know by writing courses by now, it doesn't have to be that formatic. You might have 4 paragraphs, intro to body and a conclusion. You have to think about your story and how you want to tell it. So the first part's your intro. Who are you? What are you applying for? Why you're a great fit. Okay. Part 2 is the body. You're going to explain thing 1, thing 2, thing 3, the things that you identified, right, about why they should hire you. And then the third part is your conclusion, where you say thank you. Mention that you're hoping, you hope to meet them. You have the hope for the opportunity to speak with them. Okay? That is where if you have anything left to say, you're going to want to say it. When you're writing a cover letter, you're going to want to write informal writing. You're going to start with your name and address. Okay? You're going to have the date and then the hiring manager's name and address if you know it. You're going to refer to them as Mr., Ms., or Dr., not Mrs., definitely never first name. And if you do not know if the person goes by Mr. or Ms., what you're going to need to do is a little bit of digging. If you go onto a company website, or if you Google the person, or if you go into LinkedIn, you might be able to find pictures of them, or what pronouns they use. You want to be as accurate as possible. You're then going to have your 3 parts, remembering that this could be 3 paragraphs, it could be 4, it might be a little longer. Different formats, different types of jobs may want more. Okay? And then you're going to sign off professionally. Make sure that you're not using the same cover letter for every job. Please don't be generic. Don't use that generic salutation, dear sir or madam, or to whom it may concern. For instance, if I'm writing to a college, I would write, dear members of the search committee, and that's generic and makes me uncomfortable, but they're not going to tell me who's on the search committee because of privacy. But never sir or madam, okay, or to whom it may concern. Try to track down who the hiring manager is, if at all possible. It shows that you care. Try to keep your cover letter to 1 page or less, especially at this level. Later in your career, you might go longer, but for the first years of your career, a 1-pager is good. Make sure you're including, do not include bullet points. This is where you're talking about your experiences. This is where you might be able to tell stories, but don't do too much personal backstory, not a lot of personal stuff. But you might use a sentence or 2 to talk about something you've done. Make sure you're not recapping everything in the resume, just the big highlights you really want them to know. Okay? And make sure you focus on what you're doing for them or can do for them, not about how this benefits you. I've seen a lot of student cover letters that start, this would be a great opportunity for me because, well, the employer doesn't care about that. What they care about is what you are going to do for them. Keep these things in mind. Okay, finally, remember your PAR and STARS, right? That problem, situation, task that shows that you know the context you do your work in. The action that shows what you've actually done. And the result, which demonstrates how much and how well you've done something. This is going to catch an employer's eye. If you're doing that problem, situation, task, and then the action, and then the result, they're going to actually understand that you know the work you did, you've done the things that they need you to do, and you understand the results they're going for. All right, so it's time to get to work, okay? And remember, once we start the resume, it's a living document. It never stops. It follows you throughout your entire career. Okay? You've got your skills, you've got your ideas. Now make sure you have your short stories ready for your cover letter, and let's get to work.